Over the past 2 weeks, my team and I have been in Accra to assess performance under the 3-year IMF-supported program. You will remember that this program was approved by the IMF board in May 2023, and that the key objectives are to restore macroeconomic stability and debt sustainability while laying the foundations for stronger and more inclusive growth. By design, the program reviews take place twice a year, and the mission that concludes today is intended for the 3rd review of the program. So let me say that today I'm very pleased to announce that we have successfully reached a staff-level agreement on the 3rd review of Ghana's economic program. This agreement is as in the past, subject to the approval by IMF management and our executive board. And once the IMF executive board will have completed the 3rd review, Ghana will have access to $360 million. And that will bring the total IMF support disbursed under the arrangement since May 2023 to about $1.9 billion. Before we hear from the Honorable Minister Adam and Governor Addison, and prior to addressing your questions, I'd like to briefly outline some of the key points of our assessment and also of our policy discussions with the authorities. First, our assessment is that performance with respect to the program's targets and objectives has been generally satisfactory. More specifically, all the end June 2024 quantitative targets were met, and progress on key structural reforms has been has continued despite delays in a few areas. At the same time, it is clear that the policies and the reforms that have been implemented since the beginning of the program have continued to pay off. Economic growth in the first half of 2024 has been much higher than anticipated, and indeed we will revise our growth projections for this year, once again, I should say. Inflation has continued to decline. Fiscal adjustment is on track to meet the end-year fiscal target. Remember that the government is targeting a primary surplus of 0.5% of GDP this year. The external position has continued to improve, with rapid accumulation of international reserves by the Bank of Ghana. And indeed, the Bank of Ghana has been outperforming the program objectives on that front. Financial stability has been maintained, and the authorities are committed to continue addressing the impact of the domestic debt exchange on financial institutions going forward. Importantly, Ghana has made remarkable progress on its debt restructuring. The announcement yesterday of the results from the consent solicitation and Eurobond exchange, the offer have shown very strong support from bondholders, and this marks another very significant milestone in the government's efforts to restore debt sustainability. Now, that's not to say that there are no challenges, and so our role is to also discuss these with the authorities and to find policy solutions within the program framework. And there are 3 areas of focus of our policy discussions over the past 2 weeks that I would like to highlight. The first one is the policy response to the dry spell in the northern regions. The latter is expected to adversely impact agricultural output, potentially constraining growth and adding pressures to food prices for the remainder of the year. So we appreciate the government's efforts to mitigate its impact on food availability, on prices, on economic activity. The additional spending associated with this policy response will be accommodated within the budget to preserve the fiscal objectives for this year. In addition, the Bank of Ghana is committed to maintaining a tight monetary policy stance to support a continued decline in inflation going forward. We also discussed challenges in the energy sector at great length. Here, the focus has been on reforms to reduce the size of the energy sector shortfall. And by shortfall, I mean the difference between the collections by ECG and the costs in the energy sector. And reducing the shortfall is very important to alleviate the impact on public finances and to avoid continued accumulation of arrears in the sector. We also discussed steps to enhance transparency in this sector. Finally, in a program that includes significant fiscal adjustment efforts, protecting the vulnerable is paramount. So another important area of policy discussions during this mission has been the expansion of social protection programs to mitigate the impact of the policy adjustment on the most vulnerable. The government is committed to provide additional support going forward and to broaden the scope of targeted interventions. In conclusion, let me say that we commend the authorities for the efforts over the past 2 years, and these are clearly bearing fruit. At the same time, sustained implementation of the policy reform agenda remains critical, especially with the approaching general elections. This continued commitment is essential to fully restoring macroeconomic stability, achieving long-term sustainability, and ultimately creating prosperity for all Ghanaians.